patients than paying insurance patients. It's tougher margin, and many of them worry about it. And the notion of cutting $1 trillion out of this program worries them. Don't take my word for it. Ask the Illinois Hospital Association, or even if there is one, I'm sure there is, Wyoming Hospital Association, what the impact of cutting $1 trillion on Medicaid reimbursement is going to be. Not good, particularly in rural areas. Senator Barrasso made reference to his situation in Wyoming. In the state of Illinois, we have plenty of these rural hospitals, and if one closes, it means your pregnant wife who goes into labor now has to drive 70 miles instead of 20 for that delivery. I'd hate to have to go through that. And yet that's what's going to happen. And so the position we're taking is that that kind of cut in Medicaid is going to hurt hospitals and hurt people across America. Secondly, there is a tax credit available for people in middle-income categories to buy health insurance. It's part of the Affordable Care Act, which was the Barack Obama plan that extended more health insurance coverage to America than we ever had in our history. How important is health insurance to you? I had a personal experience as a law student at Georgetown. I decided that I couldn't wait, and I asked a young lady to marry me, and she did. In my second year in law school, we learned that God was sending us a little baby. And we were so happy about it, and she arrived with her share of difficulties. I had no health insurance, none. What do you do as a student with a wife and a baby, and the baby's sick, when you have no health insurance? Well, Children's Hospital here in Washington, D.C. brought us into the so-called charity ward, and we waited to see who would walk through the door with the name Dr. So-and-so to take care of my daughter. I never felt more inadequate in my life as a father and a husband and not having health insurance. We got through it, she got through it too, and lived a good life. But the point was, there were moments when I worried that I couldn't provide the basics for my baby because I didn't have health insurance. 15 million Americans will lose their health insurance because of this Republican budget that I just referred to, the big, beautiful budget. 15 million will lose health insurance. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So when the Democrats say there are health care issues that are part of this debate on funding the government, that's what we're talking about. Keeping these hospitals open, critical hospitals in inner city as well as in rural areas. Making sure that people have their health insurance. And there's one third element I would add, I don't think we'll be able to negotiate it. Medical research. Ever hear of the National Institutes of Health? Well, sure you have. It's the best medical research agency of any government in the world. I went to the NIH about 12 years ago and met with Dr. Francis Collins, an amazing man who is head of the NIH. And I said to him, I really believe in what you do. Your research in cancer and heart disease and so many other things makes a difference. What can I do to help you? Well, he said, thank you for asking. There have been some people who've done remarkable things. I said, well, I remember there was a bipartisan coalition a few years back that doubled the budget in medical research for NIH. I said, I wish I could say I could do that again, but I don't think I can. What can I do? He said, give me and this agency 5% real growth each year in medical research, and we'll light up the scoreboard. We are so close finding cures and new drugs in so many areas that if you can give us consistent research, it'll make a difference. Came back to the Senate, sat down with my friends on both sides of the aisle. Roy Blunt, Republican senator from Missouri, was a leader in this effort. Lamar Alexander, Republican senator from Tennessee, another leader. Patty Murray, still serving as head of the Appropriations Committee and one of the best when it comes to medical research. We put our heads together, and over a span of 10 years, the budget for NIH medical research went from $30 billion to $48 billion. We got the 5% coming every single year. It was quite an achievement. 60% increase in that budget. Things were happening, good news, good developments when it came to cures and treatments. I was so proud of that effort and glad that it was bipartisan from the start. So what did the Trump budget suggest we do with medical research? Cut it back from $48 billion to $30, where we started 10 years ago. You know what happens when you cut back on research that basic? You know what happens, and I do too. When the terrible diagnosis happens at the doctor's office, it breaks your heart, and you finally stop crying and you say to the doctor, is there anything you can do? Is there a surgery, a medicine, anything you can do for someone I love very much? They say, well, there's a clinical trial. There's medical research underway. And it's a long shot, but you got a chance. It's hope. Medical research is hope. And it's one of the areas where I think Donald Trump's cuts are the most heartless cuts of all. Democrats care about this. I do. I'm willing to fight over it. I'm not willing to say, well, we'll just go on business as usual. Let's accept this. Let's cut back $1 trillion out of Medicaid. Let's take 15 million Americans and take away their health insurance. Let's cut back $18 billion in medical research each year, and we'll say it's just a clean, continuing resolution bill. That's what we're fighting over. Is it important? For me, it's one of the most important things we can do in terms of helping families across America. And let me tell you something that's going on. You should know about it. You will soon if you're covered by it. Health insurance has tax treatment that helps you pay the premiums. It makes a dramatic difference. And now, in a matter of days, health insurance companies are going to announce what the new premiums are going to be because of the budget bill, the big, beautiful budget bill of President Trump. They're going to go up dramatically. And as these premiums go up, some people won't be able to pay for them, and they'll be without health insurance, and others will see their family budget explode with an increased health insurance premium. That's the reality of this debate. It's not about who gets bragging rights and gets to beat on their chest, a Democrat or Republican. In my mind, it's a question of whether families across this country can count on us for the basics. And making sure that health care is there for America is one of the basics as far as I'm concerned. There's another issue I want to raise, relates to the administration, and you have to go back in history to appreciate it. Richard Nixon. Students of history, of course, know that name. Former Vice President of the United States, former Senator, he was a senator and a congressman, Vice President under President Eisenhower, and then President of the United States. He went through a period.
This is Elder G. This is what the Republican is talking about, radical. This is what the Republican is talking about, a deep state. You know, trying to help people that's low income. Trying to help people get the care in nursing homes that their family is too poor to pay. Trying to feed kids that their parent is working, but they just don't make enough money. When they pay their rent and their car note and their light bill, they ain't got nothing left. This is what the Republican is saying, the deep state. And watch when the Republican come up to talk. This is real. This is a United States Senate. This is a senator. This is a real debate. You don't have to go to Hannity, Jesse Waters, Laura Ingraham. You can go into the United States Senate and listen to your senators for yourself.
These political decisions that could ultimately result in prosecution. Well, under President Trump, we're back into the Nixon conversation about enemies list, except President Trump's enemies list is longer than anything Richard Nixon ever dreamed of. And that's what we're looking at now. On September 20th, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Eric Seibert, announced his resignation. Acting U.S. Attorney appointed by Trump resigned. Mr. Seibert resisted President Trump's demands to bring charges without sufficient evidence against New York Attorney General Letitia James and former FBI Director James Comey. Mr. Seibert, a Republican appointed by Donald Trump just a few weeks ago, stayed true to his oath to the Constitution and his commitment to follow the facts and the law. And for that, he was forced to resign his office. In his place, President Trump installed his personal attorney, an attorney with no experience as a prosecutor, never did it before, to indict James Comey in a politically motivated case considered by career prosecutors in that office too weak to bring charges. This indictment represents the latest step in President Trump's long crusade to weaponize the federal government against his perceived political enemies, a return to the days of Richard Nixon. We remember when the president was initially impeached in the first of his historic 2 impeachments, after he attempted to pressure a foreign ally to dig up dirt against Joe Biden and his family. And we remember when President Trump turned a mob of insurrectionists loose on our Capitol, where they violently attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power leading to his second impeachment. I will never forget that day as long as I live, January 6th. It has been my honor to serve in this chamber 29 years. I've seen a lot. I'm honored to represent a great state like Illinois, but I will never forget that moment when we were sitting here counting the Electoral College votes as to what the American people had decided on the next president. Vice President Pence was presiding. We were seated in our chairs. I noticed something unusual. Those 2 doors opened, and 4 or 5 people walked in up to the vice president and literally yanked him out of his chair and took him out the door. We knew there was a political demonstration outside, but all of a sudden it turned bad and scary and dangerous. The Capitol Police came in and announced to us, next was 10 minutes later, the same policeman came in and said, leave immediately. Don't take anything with you, just get out of the chamber. It's too dangerous for you to stay here. And we all, Democrats and Republicans, filed out those doors. You know what happened next. The insurrectionists took over this building. It was one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of the United States Capitol building. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, if you heard the news that the House of Commons in Parliament had its door broken down and people raided the chamber. You'd say to yourself, what is going on in England, for goodness sakes? House of Commons taken over by people in the street? That is exactly what happened here. And it happened on January 6th. And so this president, embarrassed by that moment, maybe, who knows if he's ever embarrassed, decided he would go after the people who prosecuted the insurrectionists, the people who were prosecuted for crimes like beating up policemen. You all came here today and we welcome you to this chamber. The reason you're safe in this building today is a lot of women and men in uniform who are guarding you and me and all of our staff so that we can do the people's business. Those people were under attack by the January 6th insurrectionists. These were not curious tourists who came in here. They ended up beating on these police and 100.
You see the incident that Durbin is just not talking about? These are the 1,500 criminals that beat police, that stormed the Capitol, that were shouting, "Hey, Mike Pence," that was saying, "Where is Nancy? Where is Nancy?" And that no good president ran for 4 years on, "I'm going to pardon 1,500 criminals that stormed the Capitol, people that committed treason against America." And you had 77 million Americans that go against the Constitution and voted for that criminal so he can set the people that stormed the Capitol free.
And he doesn't even try to conceal it or hide it. He glories in this constitutional outrage. In a social media post, President Trump issued a command to Attorney General Bondi, and I quote, "They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. We can't delay any longer." He's referring to the prosecution of James Comey. Imagine that. A sitting president commanding his attorney general to prosecute state and federal officials who simply tried to uphold the rule of law. That's exactly what this president is doing. What Richard Nixon was stopped from doing, he is doing. Since Watergate, Republican and Democratic presidents alike respect the independence of the Justice Department. recognizing that shielding it from the pull of politics was essential to safeguarding the rule of law. Under President Trump, those constitutional guardrails have been removed, destroyed. I want to be clear. What you're seeing from the Trump White House is not normal. This just isn't some inside the Beltway drama. If the president can turn the Department of Justice and the FBI into his own personal police force to target his political enemies, he can just as easily turn it against ordinary Americans. And the dam is already starting to break. The president sent active duty forces into Los Angeles earlier this year to put down protests of his administration's cruel immigration raids. He threatened to make war on the city of Chicago, which I'm honored to represent, by sending forces into that city as well as Memphis, Tennessee, and has now ordered the military to Portland with authorization to use, quote, full force in Portland, Oregon. The governor of Oregon, the mayor of Portland said what the president said about being in war and unlivable is just plain wrong, and yet he does it. It's a slippery slope into authoritarianism. Once DOJ and our military...
77 million Americans agree with Donald Trump to send the National Guard into Democratic and most of the black and the brown people live. That's what he set the January 6th like 1,500 people, and they ICE now. That's why they wearing masks, because they Ku Klux Klansmen, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers, KKK in the Aryan race. That's what President Trump is. He's a no-good traitor. And 77 million people is no-good traitors too.
In this unlawful conduct. When President Nixon did this, Democrats and Republicans on a bipartisan basis in Congress sounded the alarm together and defended the rule of law. On a bipartisan basis, we responded to Nixon. Those legislatures recognized the danger posed by a president attempting to wield power and benefit him personally. They knew it was unconstitutional, and they stood firm on a bipartisan basis in Congress. Where is that same courage today? It's time for the Republicans to join Democrats and step up and say enough is enough. This is not about political parties. It's about protecting our democracy from a would-be dictator intent on setting it all ablaze to achieve his personal aims. This is a code red alarm for the rule of law. And unless we come together to stop the president's abuses, I fear this administration will continue to corrode our American democracy. My question is this: is there one Republican senator in this chamber who gives a damn? I yield the floor.
Democrats have a political problem. The far left, their radical wing, is demanding a shutdown of the government. Their caucus is divided. The American people overwhelmingly want the government to remain open.
Now listen to these lies, right? Before you listen to this crap, remember, the Republicans control the House. The Republicans control the Senate. The Republicans control the Supreme Court. President Trump has got the Republicans in every branch of government. The Democrats can't do nothing to stop what they want. Just listen to the lies now. When they know that they are the one trying to shut down the government, they are liars. That's all they do is lie. Trying to cover up their prejudice. Trying to cover up their hate.
The Democrats never shut down the government when they were in the majority. I would remind the minority leader today that 13 times under Joe Biden, the Senate passed a clean, continuing resolution to keep the government open. We should do the same right now. Senator Schumer ought to remember those 13 times. Today should be no different. If this government shuts down, and it should not, it will clearly be a Schumer shutdown. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Did you do that? Did you see that? See how those prejudiced white men act? You know Schumer don't got no authority. He's in the minority. You know that crazy man that just spoke, they are in the majority. They got the House. They got the Senate. They got the Supreme Court. They got the president and the vice president. They can pass anything they want to. All they want to do is blow smoke under the ignorant poor white folk and poor blacks and Mexicans that don't got sense enough how to watch the news and stuff for themselves.
Takes care of your mother and grandmother when they're in the nursing home. It's a critical element of funding health care in America. And the Republicans cut $1 trillion out of it. If you go to the hospitals in Illinois, some of them are great hospitals, others do great things, but you'll find that the hospitals that struggle to survive are ones that have more Medicaid patients than paying insurance patients. It's tougher margin, and many of them worry about it. And the notion of cutting $1 trillion out of this program worries them. Don't take my word for it. Ask the Illinois Hospital Association, or even if there is one, I'm sure there is, Wyoming Hospital Association, what the impact of cutting $1 trillion out of Medicaid reimbursement is going to be. Not good, particularly in rural areas. Senator Barrasso made reference to his situation in Wyoming. In the state of Illinois, we have plenty of these rural hospitals, and if one closes, it means your pregnant wife who goes into labor now has to drive 70 miles instead of 20 for that delivery. I hate to have to go through that. And yet that's what's going to happen. And so the position we're taking is that that kind of cut in Medicaid is going to hurt hospitals and hurt people across America. Secondly, there is a tax credit available for...
This just goes to show you how ignorant and uninformed that people want to be on their own. They want to be ignorant. They want to walk around with their eyes closed. The Democrats is fighting, trying to keep hospitals open in rural communities and in the inner city. But the Republicans don't want no hospital in the rural area. They don't want no hospital in the inner city. They want them little poor trash people to die.
And we were so happy about it. And she arrived with her share of difficulties. I had no health insurance, none. What do you do as a student with a wife and the baby's sick, when you have no health insurance? The Children's Hospital here in Washington, D.C. brought us into
America. The majority of the people in America is middle class and below. They say the top percentage of people that's rich and powerful is 10% of the population. That still leaves 90% of the people. 90% of the people is voting against themselves. That they voting to get rid of their hospitals. They voting for their kids to go hungry. They do all of that against their own self and their own family and their own community, just because they so prejudiced against black and brown people that they'll sacrifice their mother and father. They'll sacrifice their wife. They'll sacrifice their children's way of living just so they can hate black and brown people. America, white America, and some blacks, some Mexicans, some Native Americans, some Arab, some Asian, is just as sick.